Due to the massive success of the Beatles, there seem to be a bunch of rumors that surround the band, some of which is very ridiculous and funny, and some of which is slightly darker in nature. The most fascinating one for me is the idea that Paul McCartney died in the 60s, somewhere in the 60s, and was replaced by a doppelganger. Now, some of the evidence they cite for this thing seems to me to be really ridiculous and far-fetched, like the Abbey Road album cover and the idea that Paul McCartney is the only guy without his shoes on, and that somehow is evidence for him being a doppelganger. Kind of crazy, but I find these conspiracy theories to be really fascinating. I'm always interested in how they first start. So let's try and find that out here today with this video. This is an informative video about this topic. Hope you guys find this as interesting as I do. Here we go, let's get into it. Here we go, this is the video how the rumor that Paul McCartney died in 1966 and was replaced got started. I'll link the original video down below in the description. Here we go.
For a couple of months in the fall of 1969, a persistent rumour that Paul McCartney had been killed 2 years earlier and replaced with a look-alike captured the imaginations of Beatles fans and the general public.
Okay, like take for example this, like people like circling into his ears and citing this chunk being missing. I mean, I don't know what's going on here. That does look slightly strange, I'm not gonna lie. I wonder how someone would explain this.
Beatles fans and the general public. The rumour began in the winter of 1967 when, after a particularly icy night, reports were flying among Britain's national press that Paul had been killed in a car crash on January the 7th, 1967. The tale was reported in the February issue of the Beatles monthly book, number 43, under the heading of False Rumour, and was a denial from the Beatles press office. In fact, it claims that neither Paul nor his black Mini Cooper had even left the house that day.
Okay, so part of some of my questions for this thing is how would they find the most perfect replacement for the guy? And then secondly, Paul McCartney is like a musical genius, especially in the songwriting department. His and Lennon's songwriting connection was the reason for the Beatles' success, a giant chunk of the reason. How would they find a replacement who has the same chemistry? That is the part of the logic which is so obviously silly.
Fast forward to September 1969, about 1 week before the release of Abbey Road, when the student newspaper of Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, ran the story, "Is Beatle Paul McCartney Dead?" In the article, which is written in the same style with which today's Ancient Aliens posits its wildest theories, Tim Harper opines that Paul may indeed be insane, freaked out, and even dead. Harper supported the statement by examining Beatles album covers and lyrics and pointed to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, where he found two mysterious symbols: a hand over Paul's head in what is conjectured to be an ancient death symbol, a left-handed guitar that lies on the grave at the group's feet. Paul was the only lefty. On the back cover, Paul is the only one not facing the camera, and in the centerfold, Paul is the only one wearing a black armband. Continuing
Talk about clutching for straws. I mean, come on guys, come on.
with the examination, Harper looked at the walrus of the Magical Mystery Tour, revealed to be Paul's in 1968's Glass Onion, which, at least according to Harper, was a Viking symbol of death. And then, turning his attention to the Beatles, he reported that playing Revolution number 9 backward produced phrases about death. It's not
Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but this sounds like a bunch of like students who are high in a dorm room who are like just kind of having fun with each other. I think he was saying that the magazine was a student review. This is totally just what you do when you have fun with each other in a room when you're young and try to make each other laugh. Like the evidence is so bad.
It's not clear if Harper was kidding or not with his story, but it certainly captured the imagination of the country. By October 1969, the Beatles' press office was flooded with questions about Paul's health, and on October the 12th, 1969, DJ Russ Gibb of WKNR-FM in Detroit, Michigan, moderated a full hour of an impromptu discussion of the topic with listeners who were calling in. Inspired Fred Labor, a University of Michigan natural resources student and reporter with its student newspaper, Michigan Today.
Okay, so more student stuff coming up, and it seems to be like the radio DJs having fun with it as well. I think for the most part this was just a bit of fun, right, by the people who were around at the time. Would let me know. Hopefully you guys will always do a great job of telling me, like, how serious was this taken? Were people actually believing in this stuff? Because this is really seems silly to me.
who was assigned to review the recently released Abbey Road, penned a satirical piece titled "McCartney's Dead: New Evidence Brought to Light" on October 14, 1969. Unfortunately, many failed to realize he was kidding. In a 2009 article, LeBour admitted that he had pulled all of his alleged clues out of his hat, but because so many didn't realize he was joking at the time, several of LeBour's creations became part of the Paul is dead lore. These include that the lyric "the walrus was Paul" really means the corpse was Paul, with LeBour claiming walrus is Greek for corpse, and that Paul was replaced with a Scottish orphan named William Campbell. LeBour also claimed that letters on Paul's black armband from Sgt. Pepper's, OPD, stood for the British equivalent of DOA and meant officially pronounced dead, and that Paul's bare feet on the Abbey Road cover signified that he was a corpse. LeBour also noted that
I don't see the connection. The connection there doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, obviously these guys are clutching for straws, but he's not wearing shoes. He must be a doppelganger. Like, I don't see the bridge between the two things.
That Paul was smoking right-handed, a sure sign that this was an imposter. Within a week, the rumor, which now contained several of LeBour's fabrications, had reached the national media. On October 21st, 1969, the story was examined on New York's WABC, which was picked up, at least at that time, in 38 states. By now, the alleged crash was claimed to have occurred on November 9, 1966, after Paul had angrily left a Beatles recording session. In addition, at some point, rather than William Campbell, some people were saying Billy Shears was Paul's replacement.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just analyzing the pictures, this just looks like a young version, a young man whose face hasn't matured yet, and this is the older version of him, maturing of the face, like widening, if you will, of his features and stuff, and a little bit more of a relaxed, mature look in his face, whereas this dude just looks shocked and young.
Due to the lyric in Sgt. Pepper's. Although the Beatles' press office continued to deny the rumor as a load of rubbish, for many the rumor lived on, even after Paul did an interview with Life on November 7th, 1969. It all worked out for Paul and the Beatles though, because as a result of the rumor, Beatles album sales increased significantly, and both Magical Mystery Tour and Sgt. Pepper's re-entered Billboard's top album charts. At the end of November 1969, LeBour participated in a cross-examination televised on New York's WOR that was hosted by F. Lee Bailey and which analysed the rumour. When LeBour admitted to Bailey before the show that he had made up his facts, Bailey reportedly said, "We have an hour of television to do. You're going to have to go along." So he did. So I really hope you found that video interesting if you did.
Okay. Interesting video for sure. I mean, a little bit more light into the rumors, which seem to be proliferated by jokes, people being obviously satirical or being sarcastic, and then people taking it to be true, which is a real kind of a burden that you have when you are making any kind of content. It's something I certainly have thought about. Obviously, I have a very small channel, but it's important to kind of put out the right stuff out there because you never know how people are going to take it. And I think part of the issue here is that back in the days there was such little information, you didn't have the internet, and so rumors like this could spread like wildfire, which I think had happened there. And again, I think it's just kids kind of being silly in a dorm room, probably smoking a little bit too much weed, and eventually it turned into something far bigger. But I mean, look, this is a crazy theory, it's not true. The biggest, I think, evidence for it would be the idea that look at the music that they made. These guys were obviously evolving over time and people can see the evolution. How would you find a doppelganger who can write Hey Jude? I don't know how you're gonna think that up, because whoever that guy is unbelievable. Where was his music beforehand? This would be the most easiest logical kind of argument against it. But again, this is up for you guys to let me know, like, how seriously was this taken? Because this seems to be just a little bit of fun, I guess, by a bunch of like young people in a dorm room. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, slightly different to what we normally do, and I'll see you guys in the next one.